If I could tell my 11-year-old self one thing, it would be run.
You may remember this harrowing story from our own backyard. Wenatchee rocked with allegations of a child sex trafficking ring back in the 90s. 43 adults arrested on some 29,000 charges of child sex abuse. None of the allegations were true, though. How the story unfolded, now the focus of a new Fox Nation docuseries called In the Valley of Sin. And joining us now, the legendary Nancy Grace, the host of that new series. Good morning to you.
Good morning, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Nancy, you have covered hundreds of crimes across the country. What was it that made this story stand out 25 years later?
Well, I've got to tell you, I've not only covered hundreds of crimes across the country, I've prosecuted hundreds of crimes, putting bad guys in jail day after day after day. What shocked me to the core, I actually didn't even want to believe it, but now I have to, is that prosecutors would go forward with a completely baseless claim. Not just one, nearly 30,000 child molestation charges leveled at 43 adults involving 60 children, spearheaded by one single detective, Detective Perez, who had about 40 hours of class training in child molestation cases. And his foster daughter made a complaint. He drove her around Wenatchee and East Wenatchee, and she pointed out about 20 homes where she said all of this child sex trafficking had happened. And based on that, I got to tell you something, Bill. When I talked to this one family, and they described they were all sitting at the supper table, and then the cops came in and dragged off mommy and daddy on child molestation charges. The children, little children, were taken to the police station where they had to stay there and were coerced into confessions. Can you imagine living your whole life thinking you're the one that put mommy and daddy in jail for something that never happened? And then when they tried to recant, say that's not true, nobody would listen.
And I mean, there was a true frenzy surrounding this case at the time. Innocent people were convicted, and lives, as you point out, changed forever. And the impact is being felt to this day.
To this day, can I tell you about one of the child, and I call them victims, even though they were not sex molested. They're victims of what happened to them. One of them told me about her alcoholism, her drug addiction, her whole life a shambles, living with the guilt of putting her mother and father in jail, trying desperately to recant and say this didn't happen, and nobody would listen. There was a pastor, Pastor Robertson, and he noticed this family, then that family, then this family, in his church, in his community, were being charged with these felonies, sex on children, their own children, and he tried to stand up and say, no, this is wrong. Then he was thrown in jail. I mean, didn't anybody see what was happening? Did nobody have the backbone to say, this is wrong, stop? I guess not.
Yeah, it's a remarkable story, and I mean, obviously the ramifications being felt to this day. And Nancy Grace, thank you for bringing this to light once again.
Thank you.
A really remarkable case, and definitely worth watching.
Hey, I'll see you on Fox Nation.
Excellent. Fox Nation, and the name of the series, by the way, is In the Valley of Sin. And the first episode dropped yesterday. New episode dropping every day, 2 o'clock our time until Friday, all streaming on Fox Nation. We have the link at Q13fox.com. Okay,